We all know how overextended the foster care system is around the world and how there are hundreds of thousands of children in need of foster care homes and adoptive parents. What shocked me most, though, was when I was talking to Marc and Eben today. They were explaining that, yes, the whole process of getting their license to be foster parents and getting the social work paperwork done and having the home assessment and everything else completed took 9 months. But once all of that was done, it was merely weeks before their daughter was placed in their home because they just have so many children needing to be placed. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. Today, I have the opportunity to introduce you to Marc and Eben, and they are my guests today from Rhode Island. So welcome to the two of you. Tell us about who you are and the members of your family.
Sure, thank you. I'm Eben Hutchison. With me today is my husband, Marc Hutchison. We have been together since 2003, met in Minneapolis, Minnesota, ages ago, in our young 20 years. Been together now more than half of our lives, so quite a while.
And then married in 2013.
Yeah. Members of our family, we have two kids, Philomena and Julian, ages 6 and 7, soon to be 8. We have two fur babies, Kylie, who's 14, Daisy, who's almost 1, and then extended family, 6 alpacas, 11 chickens, 5 ducks, honeybees.
Needless to say, we live on a hobby farm.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it was a hobby farm and not living in the middle of an urban setting with your neighbors all knocking on the door going, "Could you please with the chickens?"
Yeah.
No roosters.
There you go. That does keep the volume down then, right?
Right.
I love that your children's names, Philomena and Julian. Those are great names. I hear some wonderful names, but some of them just stand out. So I love those. Are they family names or just names that you liked?
So maybe jumping ahead, but so we didn't actually name them. They were born into foster care.
Okay.
And Julian did not have a middle name, so we gave him a middle name. But yeah, the names were picked out for them. In Mina's case, it's a longer story because there was an adoptive couple in the picture at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually named her.
Oh, okay.
And in Julian's case, it was her mother that named her. Him, sorry.
Fair. Hey, listen, no judgment. We can name our kids anything these days, and that's the best part of how we've watched an evolution in this world, right? So Julian could easily be a
We
girl's
love
name
the
too.
names. Yeah, we love the names, and we didn't want to change them. We obviously had the opportunity of adoption.
Yeah, we talked about the possibility of renaming them, but Mina we brought her home from the hospital when she was born, and she was in our care the whole time, but through the foster care system. And we weren't able to legally adopt her until she was almost 2 years old. And at that point, we had been calling her Philomena, Mina the whole time. And it's like, well, why change the name now?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if it suits her and it's the name that sort of you associate when you look at your child, then so you're right. We kind of jumped around there. I guess I could have started by asking. I just was so drawn to the names that I couldn't help asking questions. But so you've indicated that you went through the foster care system to become the parents that you are. What was it that sort of prompted you to move in that direction? Was that something that you knew from the beginning when you started having conversations about parenting, that that's what you wanted to do?
Not at first. I mean, we explored, the different ways you can adopt, and there is a lot of need through foster care. A lot of children locally that need good homes, and so we ended up going down that route.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely leaned more that route. But and there was a lot of kind of concern going that route. But I don't know, I just something I felt better about that as an avenue versus surrogacy or
And we
adoption.
were given a lot of help and services through the foster care system, which we wouldn't get otherwise. Which, as new parents, that's always good to get
Yeah.
help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you talk about that process a little bit? Because what I'm understanding is, as I speak to more and more people, is that the process and the journey is different everywhere you go, whether you are in Missouri, whether you're in Rhode Island, whether you're in the UK or in Toronto. The foster care system and how it's set up for families to be created from that is very different. So what was your journey like?
So it started with, in order to get our foster parent license, we had to take classes that were offered through, was it through DCYF,
Yeah, DCYF sponsored them. Yeah, I think they had
which
different,
is Department of
yeah,
Children and Youth.
and families. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the Rhode Island agency that's in charge of the welfare of children generally. Um, so I guess with our journey, you know, December-ish 2016, I guess around Christmas time, maybe your house feels a little more empty or something,
Hmm.
but that's I think when we sort of solidified this is the route we're going. And you know, locally there was, I think, once a month, a sort of exploratory session at a local library put on by DCYF. We checked that out. We found out there's even within, you know, that there's a couple different avenues you can you can aim to become licensed under DCYF directly, or you can be licensed under an agency that contracts with DCYF. And we just felt that there'd be more supports going through the private, agency that contracts with the public agency.
Right.
So we found one that we thought was a good fit. There's a number of, like, a handful of them in the state. Children's Friend and Service is the one that we went with. And
And they work primarily with younger, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we were assigned a social worker with them that was sort of a social worker for our family versus children in foster care get assigned a social worker to the child. So
Right.
um, we always had one point of contact that just always knew our family, right?
Yeah.
Who was also in charge of checking in on any child placement and everything too. So, but like Mark said, I think it was a 9 month journey from when we decided to go that route until we were actually licensed.
Okay.
Um, the classes were one thing, home study is another thing,
Oh, that's
right?
right.
Our house is over a certain age, so we had to get lead testing and
Fair.
all
Fire
these,
marshal
yeah, yeah,
testing,
all
and yeah.
lots of little kind of things. I had a whole checklist, of kind of keeping track everything on schedule, but a lot of steps, and it took 9 months to get through all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, you think about something like lead testing and you think, oh, we were going to have kids. So if we had kids biologically, we'd probably want to know if there's lead in the house in case, but it's something that they draw attention to. And so sometimes the things that you get to learn or you're expected to do are things that are kind of handy to just know anyway.
But
Yeah.
in that case, I mean, there's some sense of, like, the house that we live in. Yeah, it's old, but it was completely gutted in 2007,
Oh, okay. Okay.
completely, right? So there was no concern on our end, but we had to go through the formality kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. Did you I have heard different opinions and thoughts about the length of the process to get through. And I mean, certainly standing back looking from an outside in, you can appreciate why they are so careful about all of the checks and balances that they go through when they're placing already a vulnerable sector of children into the homes of people that these children haven't yet met. Do you feel as though they were everything made sense, every step that they made you take to make sure that you were going to be successful parents with these children made sense?
Yeah, I mean, the classes were definitely informative. I thought they were,
And some of it was eye-opening, which is really good. They talk about, all the positives and also all the nitty-gritty things that can happen in foster care, just so that you're aware, because you never know what the background of the child is going to be, what their bio parents are like. We heard like these horrible stories about like the bio parents, like I don't know,
just intruding into your lives a lot,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
kind of thing, I guess, like or just almost being resentful towards, but I don't think we experienced that so much. But
We lucked out, but I mean, it's good that they go over all the possible scenarios just so you're aware and
Hmm.
you're ready.
Right.
And also, I thought it was good being in the classes because you got to meet all these other people who are, potential um,
parents,
parents, yeah, just like you, going the same route as you. So you didn't feel like you were the only ones. Like you felt like almost like a little micro community.
we still have that Facebook group, although it's
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes those connections we make as we're creating our families are the connections that really are the ones that root us when we need to ask questions. We go back to the people that don't know us as anything other than this particular label. These, we're all trying to become parents at the same time. So when my kid is 5 and they're, you know, learning how to swear, what group am I going to go and ask? These people aren't going to judge me because this is all they know me as or something. It's nice to have those connections still,
Mhm.
even if it's just to see pictures of the kids growing up sometimes too, right?
yeah. The it was kind of just on the LGBTQ front. It was kind of interesting too that the one of the teachers was in that community from who was doing the class, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
As well as probably three sets of the 8 or 9 sets of parents in that. Um, so it was,
Okay. That's a high number compared to
yeah,
some of the other people
no,
I've spoken to. A lot of these classes are primarily cisgendered heterosexual couples or individuals, and one, maybe two queer couples. And so that there is community in that as well, for sure.
and two
Mhm.
other male partnered.
Yeah.
So it's, there's 3 sets of male parent couples there. So
That's amazing. And now Rhode Island isn't a big state, but it's not teeny tiny either. Are all of you geographically fairly close to one another? Like, have you maintained like meeting in the park, that kind of thing?
We've gone to a couple like queer family meetups.
not specific to that group.
Not
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And we all
Separate.
kind of had our own little timeline journeys. It wasn't all coinciding, you
Right.
know. I am Facebook friends besides with a couple of them. Um, they didn't live too far away, up in Woonsocket. But then they moved to Florida, and I think they're actually moving back here now.
Mm.
Um, but no, I wouldn't say we maintained a lot of close friendships from that, but still kind of peripheral friendships,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm. So you did your 9 months of training and getting everything ready, and then was it shortly thereafter that you get a call and that there's a baby coming and we
Yeah.
need you to be ready?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of need for foster parents. So yeah,
Yeah,
we got a
it
call.
was within 2 weeks anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so
And were you anticipating that it would be that fast? Had they said
that
it'll likely
everything
be
we
quick?
heard, yeah, that I mean, we debated older children, younger children. We decided, we wanted to go younger just because it's the full experience almost,
Hmm.
of
Yep.
being a parent. And we did go in, the mindset for foster care does have to be reunification first. And
True.
so, you're given very limited information, and we weren't trying to be selective about, is this child going to be available or not, for adoption, especially when you're in the younger age bracket that we were requesting placement for. Um, it, there's less of a demand. I think, it can be a longer period. But even then we were told it was still not going to be very long. It's just that much of a demand.
So you weren't blown away with surprise when no sooner do you get it,
No, no.
everything completed and all of a
But
sudden your
we'd
phone's
heard
ringing.
like we'd heard some like same day, kind of thing, as soon as the
Wow.
license goes through, kind of thing. But yeah,
And you've had Philomena with you since she was born then.
right.
Mhm.
She was in the hospital for a few weeks, but yeah, she came home from the hospital with us.
Excellent. Now you mentioned another foster parent. Was there or another adoptive parent situation? Was that also through the foster system, or was that through more of a private adoption agency?
That was
Are you talking about Julian?
no,
No.
Mina. So
Oh,
that was kind of a negotiation with bio.
mom.
Oh, okay.
Or was
Biomom.
it more bio
So
grandpa?
so she well, I mean, he was involved. Uh, but Biomom had made adoption plans prior to birth,
Right.
and she was supposed to go to the adoptive family's home state. And I'm sure you've heard some complexities around cross state lines, and
Hmm.
she ended up giving birth here in Rhode Island. In that
Okay.
prior history, she had, DCYF got involved right away just because of,
Oh, okay.
and and so um, yeah, it it was just a multi-state issue at
Oh,
first.
okay. Excellent. Excellent. So when
But
DCYF is in, sorry?
we weren't aware of it at
Yeah,
first, though.
I mean, they
Oh,
give you very much
Yeah.
information, at the beginning, right? So
So it wasn't until, do you remember when we first found out about it?
um, it was fairly early, like a week, about a week later.
I thought it was like a month or so. Anyway,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, time's on its own continuum, though, when you look backwards
yeah.
like that, right? I mean, you've added another child and several animals to your life since then, so
yeah.
it's on its own continuum. But it just, I guess my thought was, you've been asked to take this child home, and then you find out that there's this other potential adoption that
It
someone
was
thought was going to happen. Was that a worry for you once you
it
learned
was
about that?
quite an emotional roller coaster. I
Yeah.
mean, she seemed so perfect, and we were pinching ourselves like this. She's amazing, and falling in love with her, and then I think it was a week later that the words were, I think, the I think the first call we were told there was an adopt plan, and it fell through, but it
Mhm.
hadn't really fallen through. It just was on hold because of multi-state
Right.
issues, right?
Right.
But yeah,
So that would be hard. That would be,
yeah,
I
no, it
mean,
was, yeah, and
And
I
it
had to,
came to a
yeah,
head
six
at
months.
6 months. There was going to be a court hearing, and the adoptive parents were going to be at that
Yeah,
meeting.
they
So,
they'd petitioned to be able to take Philomena home with them, and they came up here to Rhode Island, and all the social workers were very involved, and
mhm.
um, they encouraged us to come to court and share pictures at this point, just because of rules and regulations, and they hadn't even seen a single picture of her, right? And so share pictures, share stories, full expectation that they were going to come to our house afterwards with the social workers and take me home. And so we went to court that day,
and it was heartbreaking.
yeah,
Like we
Mhm.
were convinced we were saying goodbye to her that day.
yeah, no. But then the judge unexpectedly denied the motion, and it was, I mean, I feel for that couple, like they were really great people and like,
But
Hmm.
that couple, after I felt at ease after meeting them because they seemed like such a nice couple and that Mina would be going to a good place. That made
Right.
me feel better. But then after they met us, they didn't know that Mina was in a home already that was willing to adopt her. They
Oh,
thought that she had no other option. And after we shared all of the pictures and everything with them, they saw that she was in a wonderful place. And they actually, like a week or so later, just decided that they weren't going to move forward with adopting because they felt like she was in a great place already,
right.
which
Wow.
kind of blindsided us. We thought that this was going to be an ongoing
Battle,
thing.
right?
I
And
still can't talk about it without breaking.
yeah,
Yeah.
It was just so emotional at the time, and they
Sure.
were really, really wonderful people. And
yeah.
um, yeah, it just, and I completely understand where they came from. It's like essentially they were left to, well, they have to go back to their home state, become licensed foster parents in their state. And then,
Uh,
And
so
then
they,
Mina would have to transfer the foster care system from Rhode Island
so
down
they're
there.
talking
Yeah.
about another 9 months at least, probably for them.
right.
So, I mean, there's ways of accelerating it, but then you have to have people there to accelerate it for you, right? With the
Yeah.
motivation. And
Wow.
um, it was, you know, I think they made the decision mostly out of love for Mina too. To so,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you're looking at Mina now at 6 months and thinking, okay, it could be another 6, 8, 10, 12 months before this happens. So this child could be a year and a half of knowing the two of you as her dads who do nothing but love and dote on her and then get picked up and moved. By then, she's cognitively aware of her surroundings and missing people and stuff like that. It would have been, I mean, please, I don't mean to say reunification is important if it is an issue of reunification. But in a case like this, it's moving to just to stranger's house when there isn't a reunification piece to it as well. Be hard, so hard.
yeah.
And you weathered that and then decided, oh, well, let's go again and see if we can get another child. Because the first time wasn't harrowing enough. Let's do it again.
Yeah, so we'd had, again, the social worker from our agency that we were licensed under, um, uh, knew us very well, and you know, we waited a couple months after the adoption to open up for placement again, and just the timing wise, she had another family that was she was also their social worker, right?
Mhm.
Who were non-adoptive, right? They were just foster parents, and um, in Julian's case, the judge decided that reunification wasn't possible already,
Okay.
uh, and he was 9 months old, and he came to us at 9 months,
Yeah, because they wanted him to be in a
adopted
right.
as soon as possible because of where the case was headed.
Right.
So as much as Mina's was a roller coaster, Julian's was less of big time.
Yeah.
And so, that that one's not as
And it was a
harrowing.
it was a
Right.
weird time wise too, because by the time we could adopt Julian, it was in the middle of COVID, so everything
Yeah.
was over Zoom. So when
Oh,
it was
right.
all over, it was like, did that just happen? Like
Right.
it was
Right.
whereas with Mina, like we're at the courthouse
Right.
signing things, friends and family are present.
Of course.
Big adoption party at
Yeah,
our house.
yeah. And then with Julian, poor guy,
That's true.
yeah,
I'll go
nobody
get
could come
dinner
over and
started.
see him. Yeah.
So,
Oh, geez. But
But needless,
his first birthday was like 3 days after lockdown.
yeah.
oh, poor thing. I mean, when that's all he knows, then that's all he knows, right? By the time he has his first birthday, he's barely conscious of the fact that, outside of the dynamics of the people I live with, those are my people. So I just want them around all the time. So that's what he got for his birthday, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And at one, I don't. He still got the smash cake.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So both of them then fully ensconced in your home and adopted, and they're fully your children. I mean, they've been fully your children since they came in the doors. I suspect that that's probably why your social worker was comfortable knowing that with placing these children with you, knowing when these kids come, these children are going to know that these are their dads, and that's it, that's all, right?
Yeah, and both kids we did an open adoption with.
Yeah.
One thing they do tell you in the foster classes is that every child that's adopted at some point in their life are going to wonder who their
Sure.
biological parents were, where they
Right.
came from, and
Yeah.
what their story is. And so I know like way back, like people used to hide the fact that, they had an adopted kid.
Yeah.
Whereas we've been completely open with our kids, and they completely
I think they
understand.
would have figured it out eventually, but
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they completely understand that we are their parents and that they also have their biological family.
Right.
So, Mina knows she has a mom and we see her, and Julian knows that so the other funny thing is for both children, only one biological parent are for the most part in the picture.
Okay.
And it's opposite for each kid. So with Mina, it's the biological mother, and with Julian, it's the biological father that
Okay.
are the main people that are interested in their lives, that we have the most contact with.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to keep that open relationship, just so they have an understanding more of who they are and where they came from.
yeah,
Sure.
more love is more love. And
Yeah.
we have great
That's it.
relationships with them, and I think have always had a good relationship with them. Not a competition, or like it's
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and if at the root of everything, their interest and their hope is for the children that they brought into this world to be loved and cared for and treated with dignity and respect, then they're not going to feel like they're in competition with you if they can see from you that that's exactly what their children are getting, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And as you say, more love is more love is more love. Let's wrap them up and give them as much love as we possibly can.
we generally, I mean, a lot of open adoption agreements. I think we have like guardrails. I mean, we don't have to, like the adoption agreement requires, us to allow for a certain number of visits, but we don't,
We
we
don't keep
verbally,
track.
we
Yeah.
verbally, to both of them, like these are just the minimum,
Mhm. Mhm.
that but we want you to have a relationship with
Hmm.
Mhm.
in each of their cases, right?
No.
And so it's been pretty, if we're free, why not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And is it just then the immediate parents, biologic parents, or is it their extended family as well?
Well, it started with just the parents, but with Philomena, we've gotten to know her extended family. So her,
She has five half siblings.
yeah,
We've gotten to know all of them except for the oldest, who lives across country. And even then, we've had some contact with her, mostly just by messages. And
Hmm.
um, the
but then
um,
she also has the maternal grandmother who lives
yeah,
in Ireland that we see every summer. She comes out here to visit.
yeah.
And there's an uncle too that lives just the next town over from us, and they've had us over to their place, and we've had them over here too. So we've gotten to know, um, yeah, a lot of the extended family too. With Julian though, we've just seen maternal grandmother and the two bio parents.
Mm.
So we haven't seen any of his. He has one or two half siblings.
He has one half sibling, from my understanding, and my understanding is they don't know about each other. And
Mhm.
Okay.
there's some reason not to, or I don't really quite follow, but maybe someday.
Hmm.
But Julie is a half sibling as well.
Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. You know about babyREADY because you're listening to this podcast, so you know that we are all about queer family planning and helping you have the family of your dreams. But did you know that we don't abandon you once your baby arrives? We actually offer parenting coaching as well, and that's not just for the newborn phase, although we are there for that, but it's through toddlerhood and young children, tweens, and even through the teen years. When you need someone unbiased to lend an ear so that they can hear where your struggles truly are and help you come up with a path and a plan that feels truly right for you and your individual family, don't hesitate to reach out. We are always happy to be there for you. Visit us at www.babyready.info for more information. It is, I also think about the lives that are touched when you have the opportunity to know the bio family as well and have the kids just that much more expanded, and because it's not just them that's learning outside the bounds of a stereotypical traditional Norman Rockwell kind of painting of a family, but you get these half siblings that get to know them, potentially, at least in Philomena's case, and then you were talking about an uncle that you've been over to their place. So then that brightens, you're broadening their world as well. Do they have children that can get to know like that? I just keep thinking about these learning opportunities and this growth and this world of acceptance that people I would love to see embracing a little bit more. And I feel like you have this opportunity to be this little snowball rolling down a hill.
Yeah, the I mean, in case of that specifically, maternal uncle, they actually had adopted one of her half siblings, so
Okay. Wow.
at a much younger, at a much earlier time,
Right.
and that half sibling was nearly an adult, but that was part of why we saw them is to see the half sibling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But you get to be this snowball of change and growth and education and I feel like we live in a time where that's more necessary now than ever, right?
Mm.
yeah, and I think like you started out with, I mean, different parts of the country are probably very different, right? With
Hmm.
their approach, attitudes, certainly too. I mean, that's probably a big reason why we moved out here from the Midwest. I mean, Minneapolis is a pretty liberal city, right?
But it's like a liberal oasis in the
Yeah.
middle of,
Hmm.
yeah.
But Rhode Island and Massachusetts, I would say, are very, much more open-minded and rural.
I would say the Northeast in
Northeast
general,
in
like
general.
Hmm. Hmm.
Clinton. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it is true. And I've talked to people all over the place. And those are the times when I say, especially in a case where they're working with DCYF, that they are the only, if there are any queer individuals in a class setting. I know people who started off in Kentucky and after doing all of the legwork and social work and home study and everything, then got told by someone who wasn't their social worker, don't even bother. Like you've done all the work, but they're not going to place a baby with you or a child with you. And they're like, okay, well, I guess we're up in sticks and moving. And they did, and they now have a beautiful family, but to go through all of that and then be told, yeah, so we're doing what we legally have to do, and we're saying you can take the courses, but that doesn't mean we have to put a child with you, even though you're probably going to love them as much as any other parent could possibly love a child, especially when physiologically alone the two of you can't create a child if somebody's missing, I don't know, a uterus or something, right? Like it just
Yeah.
like your appreciation is just on another level because you just can't do it without the help of somebody else, right? Like I don't know. It
Yeah.
just
And the phrase "it takes a village to raise a child"
oh,
never made more sense than after we had kids. Like,
yeah.
yeah, all the support we had, like we used and we needed, and it was really fun. It's like some of our best friends now are referred to as uncle or aunt.
Hmm.
Um, and we have several, even some of my best friends' parents send, birthday cards and presents
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's like we've gained even more of an extended family, and
Yeah,
the kids love seeing them. And yeah,
that's
it's
amazing. What do you wish that you had known before you started all of this? What do you wish somebody had taken the time to sit you down and say, okay, before you even jump down this pathway, you should probably think about or learn about or do.
just how hard it is. Um, Especially if you have a newborn, getting up every 3 hours in the middle of the night. Some of these things like you forget about until you talk about it. But I remember at the time thinking, is this what we signed up for?
Yeah.
And just being like kind of I think they call it baby brain, but just being kind of brain dead at work for the first, couple of months. I guess I felt like I didn't know what I was getting into at that point, but
Yeah.
it was all worth it.
Yeah, no, I knew that was going to be um, no, so I guess some of it's some we touched on maybe a little bit for me. I went in, I was doing Google searches like foster to adopt, right? And this sort of had my mind changed early on in that process that, reunification always
Mhm.
should be goal number one in the foster care system.
Right.
So, while we were maybe looking to adopt, going in, and we certainly were, um, my mind changed very early on that that's not that's not that can't be our number one goal here, right?
Right. Right.
Um, so this avenue, and we're touching on with some of Mina's early adoptive history, right? Um, you never know what the social workers don't have much information at the time of placement, right? Like
Right.
very limited. They can tell you age, sex, color of skin, maybe,
Yeah.
right? But that's pretty much it, right? Or
Initially, yeah, when you
any significant
yeah.
health concerns, I think they need to share that.
Yeah.
Um, but but the reality is, and I don't know if it's a statistic that's accurate, but I've heard, the reality is 50% of the time these children don't reunify, right? Uh,
Okay.
so there is a lot of need for adoption, but it just can't be, the number one
Hmm.
reason.
Yeah. Have you talked about you've built your family and now the kids are getting a bit older. So my assumption is, and this is just me assuming, so please correct me if I'm wrong, that you feel as though your family is built. Have you considered then just being foster parents, or do you feel like you would have trouble bringing a child into foster and then find out that they were now up for adoption and not looking at that avenue?
We haven't discussed it. I think probably more so is like we are struggling for time and
Right.
resource as it is, right?
Right. Fair. Fair.
So I think like, maybe something we could bridge at a later date. Mina and Julian have been asking. They
Oh
want a
yeah.
sibling, right?
Yeah.
But I at this point in our lives, we haven't really thought it. I think just from a practical point
And
of
I
view.
remember like a year or two ago, I was talking to my parents and I was saying, so I'm from a family of three. I have two older brothers. They are 2 years apart and 4 and 6 years apart from me.
Okay.
And so Mina and Julian are 18 months, so relatively 2 years apart.
Yeah.
So when they were about the same age distance that I was from my brothers, I was telling my mom, well, that's how old I was when I was, so there's a little joking about us having another child, but yeah, we haven't talked about it lately, so I don't
Fair.
know.
To do it in this venue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, no, no.
yeah.
I know. Do not hash that out here. I was just curious, but
No, yep.
well, and the only reason I think that it came to me is because, as you say, there are so many children in the system, and it takes such a long time to get through the system. I didn't know whether or not, but you're right. You have busy young children that still need a lot of your time and energy, and you have a lot of other residents on your property that also take up a lot of time and energy. So it makes sense that now may not be the best window of time to do
Yeah.
that.
But I mean, valid along the same topic lines, right? Is, we knew we wanted another child, and we maybe wouldn't have done it so soon,
Mm,
um, if it wasn't for that. We'd have to go through the relicensing process after a certain amount of time, not
right.
not
Yeah.
being an active placement home.
Yeah.
Um, they won't re-up your license if you're not, you know, continuing to foster. So I
Yeah.
think we kind of, we opened up with sort of the maximum amount of time that we could, and maybe it was still a little early for Julian. Looking back, we definitely struggled a bit here and there, but some of that was
But
maybe
now they're
COVID.
like
But
best friends,
yeah,
so it's like
Yeah.
it's perfect. Yeah.
Are your kids pretty involved with the hobby farm? Do they get involved with going out and checking for eggs and feeding the animals
yeah,
and stuff?
Yeah, I would say maybe Mina a little more than Julian. She got the nickname of the chicken whisperer. She can,
they
yeah.
all, as soon as she approaches any one of those chickens, almost they just crouch down, let her pick them up, and um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, the chickens definitely have an affinity towards her.
And Julian really
Um,
loves the alpacas. Um,
yeah, but they both have their egg collecting baskets, and
yeah.
um, when they get older, hopefully they can muck out some things too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to wait until they're really physically strong enough to be able to do that so that it isn't a messy job for you to have to follow behind, right?
Right, right.
Venus definitely helped on some of these
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And it is the circle of life and the cycle of moving things forward that they get to learn by watching the function of your farm, right? By these animals need to be tended to every day. We can't just not do it because we don't feel like it. You need to eat every day, they need to eat every day. Like that, I just think that that's probably a gift that many people would benefit from spending some time learning.
And we also had to share some harsh realities with them too, which I was a little nervous about.
Sure.
So we have hawks in the air and we've had a few fatalities.
Yeah.
And I was a little, scared to see how they reacted, but both of them handled it very well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it gives them, more of an understanding of exactly the circle of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That while we don't like to see or have it happen, it is part of nature,
Yeah.
you know?
And it helps them appreciate what happens, what the food comes to their table and how things unfold, right? Like I do. I think that it's a valuable lesson and truthfully a gift that you're teaching your children by having them even witness, even if all they're doing is each collecting 3 eggs a week and but they're still young enough that that's about all that they're doing, they still understand what it is that you're doing when you go out to muck stalls and everything else. Like I think that's a valuable lesson. I think that's beautiful that you're teaching them that.
I'm just
That's
thinking,
just my added 2 cents about it, as I don't have any animals whose stalls I'm mucking
you
out.
don't appreciate it at the time. I was just thinking back to my childhood. It's like, I grew up in a similar kind of, my parents had 10 acres and horses and chickens and ducks and geese and
Yeah.
all that stuff too. And I definitely had chores and definitely resented a lot of those chores at the time. But
Mm.
Oh, and sure, but we resent our parents asking us to put a load of laundry in too when we don't want to stop what we're doing and do it for ourselves, right? But retrospectively, you can see the appreciation and understanding that you grew up just knowing that other people, your peers, just wouldn't have had, right?
Yeah.
Kind of cool. And then you're gifting that to your children who may not appreciate it and may even resent it sometimes, but it will come back. It comes full circle too. What is your absolute favorite part of being parent to these children?
seeing their minds opened up, I guess. Like, I mean,
I love watching them grow and hearing them talk.
Mhm.
Like, just like sometimes they amaze you, like you're just like really touched. Um,
You're just talking about like when they're playing together and they don't know that you're listening to them, and then
exactly.
Yes, I love
Yeah,
that.
being a fly in the wall and just like, or sometimes if you're driving them someplace and they're in the back, like talking to each other, and Mina's like teaching Julian how to do math and stuff like that. It's like really fun to listen to. Like, I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
yeah, Mina has a big curiosity in the world. I can have long conversations. I mean, Julian's a go kind of
Yeah.
right.
person, right? But Mina's kind of a little slower, at her pace, and just wants to understand everything. She's got a very curious mind, and that's just some of my favorite. Is just some of those long talks that her and I have at bedtime.
Yeah. Wow.
I just love it. I guess part of we just felt like we had a lot to offer a child as far as experiences and adventures, and that was a lot of the reason of wanting to become parents is just sort of sharing our life with something else, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right. I'm conscious of the time. I want to thank you both for taking the time to chat with me today, for telling me your family creation story and sharing the world, sharing with the world your version of how to create a family, because I think that it's a beautiful lesson. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Yeah.
for
Thank
thanks
you.
for having us.
My pleasure. As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable paths and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.